So today we will be looking into the async await example with Swift UI 3 and iOS 15. So let's start by creating a new project. Async await demo. So you can name it anything you want. We will be using the Swift UI. We don't need to include the test at the moment, but we are not going to write any tests. So let's create a project wherever you want in your desktop. So in the meantime, when Xcode is getting ready, so I will give you what we will be building. We will be using this JSON placeholder API which returns us a list of the post. So we will be fetching this list of the post by using an async await call to the API. So let's create a bit setup. So the steps is we will be setting up the UI, the data model first, and then we're gonna replace it with your actual API call from the backend. So let's start with that. So let's do some cleanup and some project structure. So we will be using an app. So we'll be using this app into this one. We will need creating the view folder where we need that as we are building the feed view. So let's start with we need the Swift UI file feed view. So that will be the file we will be working to display a list of the feed view. We don't need this content view anymore, and we just need to replace the content view with our feed view. So we'll be using the feed view. Just resetting the Xcode project. It's building up the UI. It can take some time. That's fine. So we are good to go. So what we will be requiring to display this list, so we can make use of a couple of things. We can make use of list view. We can make use of lazy v stack. So let's start with the list view, and let me create a navigation view. Inside that we will be using a list view. In the list view, let's create a navigation title feed. That's what we will be displaying. And inside the list, for now, let's create a for loop for each 0 to less than. You can use 10 item in. We will be using a text to show post and backslash we'll be using item number. And if we go with the list style, let's switch it to the plain list style. We're not using any bordered one or something like that, so it should be fine. And let me just build this app onto a simulator as well. So I will be using this simulator. Just need to check we are good to go. Why this M1 machine is getting slower. Oof. Yeah, so we are able to see the list of the post. So plain is fine. So we are not focusing on to the designing part, but the way and the structuring of this one is like, instead of using this text view, I will be creating another view file for this, which will be called post row view. I will be using this post row view, and And then this one I will be using a vstack and text that will be the title. The next one will be the body, and if we go to the preview layout, size that fits dot padding. So let's resolve this. So we have this title view. Let's give it some styling. Font dot headline dot font weight dot bold. This font dot footnote dot font weight dot medium. Or instead we can go with the light one. And need to add some styling and alignment. I'm going to give it an alignment of leading and spacing of 5. So let's see how it's gonna be look like. Title, body, and we give an example. That's fine. Can just to have a look how it gonna look like, so we can copy paste that text. That's how our body will be looking like. Just make sure that you have written it correctly. So that's how it should be looking like. So if we go back to the feed view, instead of using this text, just replace it with post row view. Xcode sucks sometime. Okay, so we can see list is there. If we go back and we can give it a nice structure to the list style, we can see now it's looking in a better way. But if we add some padding, say, to each row, it's gonna look way more better. So you can see we have created the UI part for this. So let's go with, as we will be using the MVVM, so next thing we need to create a group that should be the model one. I will be creating a new file for post model. We will be using post. So if you look into this one, so we will need these we need this structure for the post. Let's create a structure of post. It should be decodable and identifiable to using within your search UI. So I will be defining variable ID. So let's say let ID of type int, let user ID of type int, let title of type string, let body of type string. So let's make sure we haven't missed anything. We're using the same name, so don't need to create enum coding keys. It should be getting mapped correctly. So let's go back and to check our even we can create some mock data, but we are not looking at how to go with the TDD approach and stuff like that. I will be mostly focusing how to fetch this data from the API in an async way. So let's go back, and if we look into the view model, into this feed view, I will be creating a new file for this, and let's create it feed view dot view model. I will be just creating its extension feed view class view model of type observable object, and inside that I will be requiring post. variable, it should be the published one at published var. So make it private, and we are doing the set var posts of type result, an array of post error. And then we need to start the init method, and let's give it like self dot currently, just to give it a pass, like I will creating a success with this, to make sure we don't crash anything, because here we need the actual fetcher class. That's what we will be creating next. So next group API, I will be creating the post fetcher here, Swift UI post fetch. So you can create directly a post fetcher class, but just to give you a demo that it's not the right way to create the concrete classes and pass them as a dependency. Instead, you can use an abstraction. I will be creating an abstraction for this protocol, post fetching, that will be using a func fetch posts. That will be an actual async function. So we will be using an async throws what there is kind of response we are expecting, a result of type an array of post, or we can expect an array. Sorry, error. So now we're gonna create the class post fetcher conforming to this post fetching protocol fetch post. So we need to use a URL is equal to import foundation. I will be using that URL of that strings. I need to copy this URL. So what else we need? So we need to use do and casting, as we will be using the try catch thing. Error return dot failure error. So let's map our data and response. We will not be using, we will be using URLs. We need to use try await URL session dot shared dot data from. We need, as you see, we will be using the async method from URL. So let's do this. We are not using the delegate anymore. So let's see, let posts is equal. So here we are using the async, so we're not going to move to the next line until we complete this line of the code. So we will be using the JSON decoder dot decode an array of post dot self from data we received from this line. So yeah, we need to use that try catch. It can happen that it's not able to map those JSON decoding files. So then we need to return dot success list of the posts we actually received from this URL. So that's our actually post fetcher class, and we will be injecting it into our view model. So we will be using here post fetcher of that conforms to post fetching equals to post fetcher. You can create a separate function like fetch post. You can call it on view API. I will be just, for the demo purpose, I will be using only when view model is initialized. So I will be fetching all the list of the post. So the thing is, we need to do the UI part and updating you onto the main thread. So I will be using dispatch queue dot main dot async, and here I will be using that task because this block of code is actually doing an async code using async block of code, so we need to use that task thing. So let's self dot posts, we will be using it like a posts is equal to try await post fetcher dot fetch. So that's how we'll do the fetching part over here. So now it's a published one, so it can inform the view model where we're using the view model that something's actually new value is actually published. Instead of using this, we can just make sure is equal to this. As we are in the initializer, we are initializing its value. So if you go back to the feed view model, now we are requiring an add observed object for, so we're making use of view model now, view model. So if we extend this one and close this one, and let me zoom a bit out. Oh, it's too much. So let's do some setting. So it's missing the argument. Okay, that's fine. We need to use the init of the view model, and if we go to the app as well, we'll be requiring the view model dot init. And if we come back over here inside the navigation view, so if we need to do this, so which view model dot post case dot success left post is equal to this, and if there is an error, case dot failure let any error we receive. So I will be displaying it with a text with error dot localized description. There can be a third case, none, so that when we are loading something, so instead of saying that, we can use the progress view here to make sure that we are doing some progress at that moment. So that's how it should look like. Now we will be using the posts, and we have the post, and making some changes in this post view. Variable post of tag post, and instead of using this, we will be using post dot title, and for body we will be using post dot body. So it gonna ask me to write down this, so I can just initialize it from one test title test body. So while we are designing, so I can see that how it design gonna look like. So let's go back and try to run our app, and yeah, it's missing the argument. I need to pause the post. Let's give it a try. Let's run our app. Can take some time for loading. As you see, there was a loading, because let me run again. So sometimes Xcode takes some time. So you will be able to see that loading. That was our progress view, and this is the list of the posts we actually fetch from the API using the async await. So that is the part 1. In part 2, what we will be looking at, each post can have comments. So let me open that JSON placeholder just fake API. So I was utilizing this 100 post, but how if we use this comments endpoint and we make use of the async await power, and I can display the list of the number of the comments against each post. So that will be the next part of the video. We will be creating an API call to fetch the comments, and then we will be mapping it to the post comments, so we can add it as a separate field for this post, that number of comments it has or other stuff. So stay tuned, I will be uploading the next part as soon as possible.